Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. This is the podcast where we challenge our present by viewing our past. I'm a firm believer that our greatest future lies within the correct view of our past, because when you actually look at it, you can probably see some areas where you need to change your mind. You need a mind shift. And I'm super excited because we're finally talking about Mindshift. It's a book by Erwin Raphael McManus. I highly encourage you to pick up a copy. This book is absolutely just laced with incredible tidbits that are going to change your life. We're only going to go through like 2 out of the 12 mind shifts that are inside this book today. But I really hope that you enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. We are finally talking about Mindshift by Erwin McManus. Now, this book came out last year, but I've been talking about this book for quite a while. And if you've listened to the podcast, I've probably brought it up a couple of different times. I started reading this earlier this year, and I realized, whoa, there are just so many things in this book that are so important that I want to slow down. I want to make sure that it becomes a part of who I am, that I actually start putting into practice the things in this book. So I'm actually only 6 of the 12 mind shifts that Erwin goes through. But if you're in a rut and you want to change the way that you think, if you are experiencing something and you just want something fresh, I highly recommend pick up this book, whether it's on Audible or anywhere. And this isn't an ad. This is just a joy of what this book has brought my life. I highly challenge you to grab a copy, read it for yourself, and honestly enjoy. Honestly, you might recognize some of the people who've read it and wrote stuff on the back of this book. Ed Milet, who's absolutely incredible, has a massive podcast. Lewis Howes has the School of Greatness podcast. Absolutely incredible podcast, by the way. I love Lewis Howes. As well as Sean McVay, who's the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, also read this book and highly recommended it. So I would encourage you, grab a copy. And we're going to go through a couple of the mind shifts today. We'll probably split this up into a couple of episodes because there's so much in each of these episodes. Now, I do like that at the beginning of the book, he didn't just jump into like, here's ways to shift your mind. He actually started with, how do you even recognize you need a mind shift? How do you even know you need to change your mind? Because some of us, like me, I don't even know that I didn't even know I needed to change my mind. I thought I had a pretty good mindset. I thought my mindset was like, you know, we're making it. You know, we're doing it. All last year, I put myself in a blender, worked on my health, worked on fitness, started the podcast, pursued a new career, all this stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I've got a good mindset. And then as I started reading this book, I realized, there's still things that I need to shift. In fact, there are still quite a few things that I need to shift. But I loved that he started with the power of belief, in the fact that if you believe that you are not good at something, then you'll most likely struggle being good at things adjacent to that. So, you know, if you say things, and I've heard people say this all the time, right? They'll say it nonchalantly. Oh, I'm not good at that. I've never been good at that. Or, oh, I don't do that. I'm not good at that. Or, I don't really try to do things. I'm not good with that. We'll be bad at the things that are adjacent to whatever we just said we're not good at. And so if you say, I'm not good at communication, I've never been good at communication, well, then don't be surprised when you're bad at management, leadership, relationships, things like that you struggle with, because all of those things need you to be good at communication, or at least need a pursuit of communication in those things. And if you are convinced that you're bad at it, then you're going to struggle in those other things. This is a quote from the book Mindshift. If you believe people never change, you will never change. If you believe you cannot succeed, you will fail. And I love how Erwin kind of wraps that up in a bow, in the recognition that you need to believe that it is possible that something good is going to come out of this. You need to believe that it's possible for people to change in order for you to change. And once you are able to grasp that, then you can actually start transforming your life into the person that you want to become. I kind of get into this mentality sometimes. And lately, I've even seen myself do this. So when I was going through this book and I started going through it, I realized, wow, I need to kind of shift my mindset a little bit, because I had been grinding so hard. I had been focusing so hard on myself and on my gym and all this stuff, I started getting into this mentality where I was like, oh, I just need a break. I need a break from my job. I need a break from the world. I need a break from people. And maybe you've said this. I started catching myself saying, I need a vacation, which I've never really said that in my life. So I really do think that it's one of those things where you just kind of catch yourself going through a rhythm or going through a change. And as I realized and I went through this book, I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to change the way that I think about that, because I don't think that we need a break, and I don't think that we need a vacation. I think we need a mind shift, right? We need to change the way that we think about life, because if we're able to change the way that we think about life, then we will change our lives, because we're no longer waking up with the mentality of depression or anxiety or frustration. If we change the way that we think, we'll wake up, and yes, we can experience anxiety, we can experience depression, but the way that we think about life will impact everything about us. So if we wake up and we think, oh, this is an opportunity, it's way better than saying, oh, this is a requirement. So we get the opportunity to live and pursue and go after things, which is honestly one of the best things about life. So we're just going to go through 2 of these mind shifts today, and it's going to be pretty quick. So the first one is just, it's all about people. It's all about people. And I can promise you this, there's so much in life that I look back on in my memories, and all of the really good memories are memories where I experienced them with people, where I get to share the story with them, or we get to relive it. And anytime I see old friends, there are stories that we come up, hey, remember when we did this? And remember when we did this stupid thing? I have roommates that I recently just reconnected with one of my roommates and from years ago. And we were just like, man, it's been so long, yet we had so much joy. And even though we didn't live together very long, it was a very impactful relationship and friendship that we grew with and grew together. And so I think back, and there's a few memories. There's a few memories where it was just from me pursuing the things that I wanted in life, where I was all alone. And those memories I think about when I'm all alone, because they were impactful to me and they were beneficial to remember and say, no, I remember sitting in my car at midnight, just every single night after work, I would just sit in my car at midnight and just sit there. And I remember I did that night after night after night, where I just sit in my car for like an hour. And it's special to me. But those memories don't have anything to do with anybody else. I do have a bunch of memories where I experienced with other people, though. And those are the majority of the ones that I think of. And those are the majority of the ones that encourage me and motivate me to move forward. So I'm just going to share this. This is a quote from the book. Never choose things or experiences over relationships. The greatest mistakes you will ever make will not cost you money. They will cost you people. This is so true. It's true to my life. I've lost so many good friends over the years because of the consequences of my actions. Now, as I say that, some of them were very big mistakes, and I am sad that I lost friendships, that I broke friendships, that I burned bridges. And there are some people in my life that are no longer in my life, or they're not in my life anymore because I burnt those bridges so badly. And those are my consequences from my actions and my choices. Now, not all of them were mistakes. Some of them were just choices that I made, like moving across the country to live in a different area. That puts a rift on some friendships. But for the most part, there's always going to be things that you do. Now, every action has a consequence, and we tend to think that consequences are just a bad thing, but they can also be a good thing. So I did want to make a caveat on consequences and the fact that if you choose not to get drunk with the boys on a weekend night, the consequence may be FOMO, right? Fear of missing out or hearing about this great night, the next day. But there's also other consequences where if you choose to wake up early and make the gym and your health a priority, then the consequences of your actions might be getting in shape and feeling better about yourself than ever before. So there can be really good consequences. I just want to make a distinguishing remark about the fact that some consequences are really good, and you should absolutely recognize that every single choice, every single action has a consequence. So the second mind shift, the first one is it's all about people. And I think we can all agree that it is important that we make the decisions in our lives not just based on, oh, it's all about me. Because social media will say it's all about you. You do you. Focus on you. Only you. It's, the best thing about it is you time. Take time for yourself. I see it all the time. And personally, I get it. There's some part of it that is true. You do need to recognize that a empty battery can't charge anything. So if you recharge by focusing on you, then by all means, if you need time by yourself to go on a walk, go on a walk. If you need time by yourself to sit and read and do that. But if you are a charged battery, if you have recharged fully and you're still saying, no, it's all about me. I'm focusing on me. You're actually diminishing the fact that it's all about you. And you're taking away the greatest opportunity of making it all about people. And I love that Erwin mentioned that it's all about people, because social media tends to have this other mindset where it's all about you. But you need to shift the mindset when you think it's all about people. You'll take the time for yourself to recharge, but then you'll make the most out of your charge so that you impact the people around you while you're all charged up. So if it's going to the gym or whatever to recharge, then you spend time at work where you're in a better mood, you're able to impact your coworkers, etc. Or maybe you need to hit the gym before you go home and you need to have that rush of endorphins, and you need to be energized and able to handle the kids, or be able to help out with the kids or whatever. You need to be in shape. And so in order to do that, you recharge yourself so that you can use that charge on your family and be as best as encouraging as you can, and maybe as active as you can, or as active as you need to be at home. So I just want to make that a priority. Is the first mind shift is it's all about people. The second one is that you don't need an audience. And this is where social media has absolutely screwed our minds up in so many ways, shape, or form. I mean, everybody has a audience. Everybody has a following, right? Whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, which is now known as X, TikTok, whatever. You all have a following. You have people who follow you, right? And you have this audience that is watching everything that you do in life. And it's interesting because when you're going through life, it's really easy to get into the wrong mindset of, oh, I want them to view me because they need to see that this is what's going on in my life. And so you end up just posting all these different things. And we see it all the time where people are like posting with their new cars, or they're posting with clothes that still have the tags on them, and they're hiding in the tags, and then they return the clothes later because they can't really afford those clothes, or they can't really afford those shoes, or they can't really afford that car. But they want people to give them the feedback as if they do, and give them the status that they do. And I've seen it all the time where most people, you'll see people spend countless of hours, right, adapting and changing themselves to build this following. Oh, look how cool I am, and I can do this, or I can do that, and I can do this, and I'm all about this, and I've got this money, or I've got this watch, or I've got this type of ordeal. And they spend all this time changing who they are to get the following, but then they have to spend the next few years changing who they are to keep that following. So they have to keep up with the times. So they have to do new things, and they have to change things. And I've seen countless people on social media just go down that rabbit hole. I myself, I used to stream on Twitch, and I remember the rabbit hole of posting on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and all these different places and YouTube. And I was like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. And on top of trying to live my life. And it's this grueling mentality of, I just need the likes. I need the follows. I need this thing. And I remember there was a group that turned somebody down for a sponsorship because they didn't have a big enough following. And I just sat there, and that was probably like the breaking point where I recognized I don't want to be in this mentality or this pursuit of trying to get a big enough following to be able to get a sponsorship. Like that just, it didn't feel right. Like it wasn't about who you were. It wasn't about the message that you gave. It was only about, do you have a certain amount of followers? That's it. And I didn't really like that. And so I really that was my mind shift moment in social media. But it's interesting because social media is the only place where we get instant feedback, right? If we want good feedback, all we have to do is change our lives to match the algorithm. But if we're really wanting a good life, then we have to change the algorithm in our brains to pursue the person or the life that we want to live and not really care about the feedback from social media. And that's what honestly was one of the biggest shifts. Even before I read this book, it was one of the biggest shifts of last year. I remember when I started the podcast, I was actually getting like 1,000 views per post. And I was getting really good traction and I was hitting the algorithm and hitting the hashtags and all this stuff. And then over the course of a couple months, I went from 1,000 to 200. And then now I'm at like some posts I only get like 90 views. And it's really easy. Some videos on YouTube, I have 0 views still. And it's easy to get discouraged by that mentality. Or if you have that, oh, I need the views, I need the followings. But I love what Erwin says in the book. He says, fame is what you're known for. Greatness is who you are. And instead of trying to pursue and change and adapt to get the views, what I really set out to do, especially last year when I started this podcast, was I'm going to pursue my future and pursue my greatest opportunities first. And then I'm just going to talk about what I'm doing. So that helped me take the pressure off of getting views or getting likes or getting comments or anything like that. Now, I love comments because I love communication. I love interacting. I love getting an opportunity to see what people think about the conversation that I'm having, because I'm having these conversations with myself regardless of whether I post them. I'm having this internal dialogue while I'm reading this book. I'm having this internal thought process, and I just think that I am not 1 in a billion. I think I'm more like 1 in 100,000. I think that there are a lot of people like me who are pursuing and grinding and working, and they want their best future and they want to build their future, and they're having the same conversations that I am, and that's who I'm speaking for. And I know that down the road, there are going to be way more people who are going to find me, are going to hear about this, and whether or not they ever like, follow, subscribe, anything like that, I know for a fact that this is the conversation that they're having as well. Because I don't think that I'm that unique. I don't think I'm the only person who's having this conversation. I think there are other people who think this as well. And it just took all of the pressure off of, I'm just going to do this because this is who I am. I'm going to pursue my job. I'm going to pursue my career. I'm going to pursue my future. And I'm going to recognize, just like I say in the podcast, right? My greatest future lies within the correct view of my past. So I'm going to challenge everything from my past in my present and say, hey, no, actually, I'm strong enough to handle this. And I'm going to step into my future with that ferocity and joy. It's so unique and cool. Now, I do think social media is really good. I do think social media is a beneficial thing for the most part. In fact, just yesterday, I talked with a friend who I've never met in real life, but we've followed each other on social media for a couple years, and they were going through something, and they just messaged me, and they were like, hey, I think you're the person who I need to talk to about this. We ended up having this great conversation. I've never talked to them before one-on-one, but it was this awesome opportunity. And as I was wrapping up the conversation, I really thought about it. I was like, man, it would be awesome if I could have a one-on-one conversation with all of my followers. And then I realized, wait, that's what I'm doing here with the podcast. this is my opportunity to talk to you one-on-one. And of course, you can always find me on social media. You can always hit me up with a message or a comment or anything like that. I'd love to interact and communicate with you. But this is my opportunity to have that one-on-one conversation, because this is the stuff that interests me. This is the stuff that I talk about in my one-on-one conversations. So if you want to get to know me, let's have some conversations and just tune into the podcast every week. Make sure that you hit that follow button or share this with a friend who thinks like you as well, or thinks like us. Make sure that you're interacting, because what that does is that expands our conversation to reach more than one-on-one, and it goes to one-to-many, which I think is just such a cool and unique thing when you utilize social media, not about how many followers you have, but how much impact you can have on the people around you and the people that come across you. That's what's super cool. And you can connect with people who I've never met this person in my life. They live in another country, and we were able to connect and talk, and it was like we had known each other for years. It wasn't awkward. There was just a clear respect. Hey, this is what's going on. Hey, this is what I think. Awesome. It was an encouraging conversation overall. At least I think so. I'm pretty sure so. But social media isn't the end all be all. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's also not a terrible thing. So don't get that mixed up. I just want to make sure that it hits home that you don't need a following or an audience to go do things. You're your audience. You're the person. You need to wake up in the morning and say, I want to do this because I think it's cool. I think the favorite part about doing this podcast is I'll listen to this podcast later this week, and I'll hear something that I said today and be like, no, I really like that. I'm glad I said that. This is a part of who I am. Just like in other podcasts, I'll listen to it and be like, yes, I need that. I needed to hear that. And I've gone back and I've listened to podcasts from months ago, and I was like, wow, I needed that message today. And so I really like my content, and I'm not going to change. We're just going to keep going. Now, there is some change that's going to take place because we're almost at episode 100. And I don't know if it's going to be like episode 90 or 95 or whenever that I start making these shifts and changes. But as you can see, I changed the layout a little bit. I will always adapt. I will always try to grow to something that I like. So if you like the podcast, please hit that follow button. Not because I'm needing followers, because I want to make sure that you are able to get all the posts or all the notifications or etc. It helps me as well in recognizing, oh, this is a good conversation, so we could have more of this conversation. This is something that I have more to say about, or maybe it's something where it's like, oh, okay, maybe I am the only one in this. So I say all that. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. I really appreciate everybody who listens to the podcast. I'm going to keep doing it regardless. We're almost at episode 100. We'll probably do something special at episode 100. I don't know yet, but we'll figure out something to do. So I really appreciate it. That's going to do it for this conversation. I really hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.